On the cool, fog-drenched morning of May 15, 1996, 8 children from Millbrook Elementary, eager second graders between the ages of 7 and 8, climbed aboard a bright yellow school bus with squeaky brakes and the smell of vinyl seats and pencil shavings. Their laughter bounced between the windows as they departed for what was supposed to be a day of learning and excitement at the local nature preserve, where deer roamed free and birdsong filled the trees. Their teacher, Ms. Palmer, had a clipboard in hand and a backpack filled with juice boxes, first aid supplies, and permission slips. The students had no idea they were taking their final ride. That bus, however, never reached its destination. It disappeared completely, as though swallowed by the earth itself. There were no screech marks on the asphalt, no fragments of twisted metal in any ravine, no broken limbs along the backcountry roads, just silence. The children, along with their teacher and the driver, seemed to have vanished without a trace. A day that began with smiling faces and packed lunches dissolved into a night of sirens, searchlights, and frantic phone calls. Days turned to weeks, then months, and finally, years. Investigations yielded nothing substantial. Search teams combed the surrounding wilderness, helicopters scanned the dense forests from above, and divers explored murky ponds. Families were left with hollow condolences and theories that never held. Eventually, the case grew cold, categorized quietly under presumed accident. But for the families, the pain never dulled. The not knowing, the aching void, was the worst kind of torment. In 2011, 15 years to the month after the children disappeared, workers began gutting the old Millbrook Elementary building, slated to be repurposed into office space. The building had stood unused for years, left to decay, its windows dusty, its hallways echoing with long-forgotten footsteps. When the renovation team broke through a deteriorating section of the basement wall, they expected to find insulation, maybe outdated plumbing. What they uncovered instead sent one man vomiting into a corner and left another frozen in place, speechless. Behind the crumbling bricks was a room, perfectly preserved, a classroom sealed off from the world. 8 small desks stood in formation, coated with the fine dust of time but otherwise untouched. Children's backpacks still hung from wall hooks, faded but intact. A globe sat crooked on a shelf. Finger paintings and construction paper butterflies still clung to corkboards, colors dulled but hauntingly vivid. Cubbies along the wall held tiny jackets and sneakers, some with Velcro straps and little name tags, the ink still legible, as if the children had stepped out for recess and simply never returned. On the teacher's desk was a note, scrawled in fading ink that trembled across the page. "He's going to kill us all. If someone finds this, please tell their families the truth. We never left the school." News of the discovery spread like wildfire, reigniting old grief and suspicion. What had been accepted as a tragic loss was now a mystery once again, this time with physical evidence, chilling and undeniable. Law enforcement immediately reopened the case, while crime scene investigators and forensic teams descended upon the site with equipment and urgency. The sealed room told a story no one had been ready to hear. At exactly 6:43 a.m. the next day, a news van pulled into the gravel parking lot outside Millbrook Elementary, headlights slicing through fog that clung to the building like sorrow. Across the street, Lisa Brennan sat in her old Honda Civic, a paper coffee cup resting in her lap, its contents long since cold. She had arrived before sunrise, unable to sleep after watching the late-night news. Contractors at the old school had uncovered something disturbing. The anchor didn't say what, just that the school was now a crime scene. For Lisa, the news report didn't offer new pain. It only reopened a wound that had never healed. Since that day in 1996, she had walked through life as if in a half-dream, existing but never truly present. Her daughter Sophie had been just 7 years old, a spark of life wrapped in pigtails and purple sneakers with glittery laces. She remembered the morning Sophie left, the way she bounced on her toes at the door. "Field trip today, Mama. We're going to see baby deer." Lisa could still see her little backpack swinging as she skipped toward the bus. That was the last time she saw her daughter. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A message from her sister. Saw the news. Are you okay? Lisa didn't respond. How could she explain that time had stopped for her in 1996? That she hadn't felt okay in 15 years? Outside, reporters began setting up tripods and testing microphones. The air buzzed with quiet urgency. Lisa watched from behind the windshield, her hands clutching the steering wheel, knuckles white. Finally, she stepped out onto the cracked asphalt. The morning air was sharp and wet. Her legs felt weak, like she might collapse under the weight of everything she'd carried for so long. A sheriff's deputy, young and stern-faced, stepped in front of the school's main entrance. "Ma'am, this is an active crime scene. Media only beyond this point." Lisa reached into her wallet with trembling fingers and pulled out a school photo, its corners bent and edges faded. Sophie's second-grade portrait, her smile crooked, one front tooth missing, mischief and innocence in equal measure. "My daughter was one of them," Lisa said, her voice ragged. "Sophie Brennan, she never came home." The deputy's face softened. He glanced from the photograph to the worn lines of Lisa's face. "Wait here," he said gently. "I'll get the sheriff." 20 minutes later, Sheriff Tom Valdez emerged from the building. He was older, heavier, the gray, in his hair now complete. Lisa remembered him from the first days of the search. He'd been the young deputy then, full of determination and protocol. He walked toward her now with the slow weight of someone who had seen too much and understood too little. "Mrs. Brennan," he said with quiet solemnity, "I thought I might see you." "What did you find, Tom?" Her voice was low, controlled, but underneath, a storm was brewing. He looked around, wary of the cameras. "Not here. Come with me." They sat in his cruiser, the heater running at full blast against the damp morning. Lisa's hands were folded tightly in her lap. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. Tom finally broke the silence. "There's a room in the basement, a classroom. It was sealed behind a false wall. Everything's still there. Backpacks, drawings, shoes with names in them. It's like time just stopped." "That's not possible," Lisa said, shaking her head. "They boarded the bus. I saw them." "I know," Tom replied. "We all saw them, but the evidence suggests they never left the school." The words hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her breath caught. She bent forward, tears spilling onto her lap. 15 years of mourning, uncertainty, and false hope collapsed in an instant. "You're telling me she died here? In that building?" "I'm telling you we're reopening the investigation. We owe those children and their families the truth." Lisa stared through the windshield of the patrol car, her reflection faint in the glass. The memories came in waves, Sophie's giggle echoing down the hallway, her tiny arms wrapped around a favorite stuffed animal, the smell of bubblegum shampoo. Each one now felt like a relic from a parallel life. "How could this happen?" she whispered. "How could no one know?" Tom shook his head, the weight of regret heavy on his face. "That's what we intend to find out. Someone built that wall, someone covered it up, and someone knew." A long silence passed between them, filled only by the hum of the engine and the muffled clamor of reporters outside. Lisa wiped at her eyes. She wasn't sure whether the tears were of grief, rage, or relief that at last there were answers, however horrifying they might be. "I want to see the room," she said, her voice firm. Tom hesitated, then nodded. "I'll take you down myself." "There are things down there, Lisa," Tom said quietly, his voice barely carrying over the hum of the patrol car engine. "Things that contradict everything we believed happened that day." His eyes didn't meet hers. He stared at the dashboard like it could spare him from what he had to say next. Lisa sat up straighter in her seat, the rawness in her throat, a reminder of how much she'd already cried. She wiped away the tear streaks from her face with the back of her hand and steadied her breath. "I want to see it. Lisa, I want to see where my daughter died." Her voice didn't rise, but it struck like a hammer, unyielding, certain. Tom's jaw tensed, the conflict playing out in the twitch of a muscle in his cheek. It's an active crime scene. I can't just— You owe me this, she interrupted, her tone like ice. You all told me she was gone, that there was nothing else you could do. You closed her case and moved on with your lives, while I searched ditches and dead-end roads every day. Every damn day. She pulled her phone from her jacket pocket, her thumb hovering just above the contact she had saved years ago. Channel 7 News. I can call them right now. Tell them the sheriff refuses to let a grieving mother see the place where her daughter spent her final moments. Or— She paused, her gaze sharp. You can walk me down there yourself. Tom looked at her for a long moment. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of old failures. Then he reached for the radio clipped to his shoulder. This is Sheriff Valdez, he said, voice steady. Clear the basement for 10 minutes. We have a family member who needs to see the scene. 20 minutes later, Lisa Brennan stood at the threshold of what felt like a mausoleum. A tomb not built with stone and soil, but with silence, lies, and a concrete wall that had hidden the truth for 15 years. The air was heavy down there, stale from decades of entombment. Each breath felt borrowed. The room was exactly as Tom had described, more haunting in person than any story could prepare her for. Time had not moved inside these walls. 8 desks sat in careful rows, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. A chalkboard still bore the words, May 15th, 1996, in faint, chalky script, its lines blurred with age. The bulletin boards displayed drawings, letters, and Mother's Day cards that had never reached the mothers they were meant for. But what undid Lisa completely were the cubbies along the far wall. 8 cheerful compartments, each labeled in vibrant marker. Katie, Michael, Emily, Ethan, Megan, Tyler, Jessica. And in the far corner, Sophie. Lisa's knees buckled. The strength drained from her limbs, and she sank onto the cold concrete floor in front of her daughter's cubby. She reached forward, fingers trembling violently, until they brushed against the pair of purple sneakers nestled on the lower shelf. The same shoes Sophie had worn the morning she boarded the bus. Silver laces, slightly frayed, still tied neatly. She never left, Lisa murmured. Her voice was barely audible, more breath than sound. She was here the whole time. Above the shoes, folded with care, was Sophie's favorite sweater. The pink one Lisa had knitted by hand, dotted with tiny embroidered flowers. Lisa's hands moved like they were not her own, pulling the fabric aside to reveal a folded slip of paper tucked behind it. She opened it slowly. The handwriting was unmistakably Sophie's, big, rounded letters typical of second-grade penmanship. Tell Mom I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't come home. The words twisted through Lisa's heart like a knife. Her scream ripped through the room, loud and anguished, bouncing off the concrete and metal like thunder. It was not just grief. It was every moment of confusion, every unanswered question, every birthday spent staring at an empty chair. The rawness of her cry made Tom instinctively step back toward the stairs, his face ashen. When she finally stopped, the silence that followed was so thick it felt like it pressed against the skin. Lisa looked up at Tom, her eyes no longer filled with tears, but something harder, something burning. Find who did this to them, she said. Find him and make him pay. Tom nodded slowly, the gravity in his posture matching hers. We will, Lisa. I promise you, we will. As they climbed the stairs back toward the surface, neither noticed the eyes watching them from the shadowy tree line. A figure stood motionless beneath the canopy of old pines, barely visible through the morning mist. David Crane crushed his cigarette beneath the heel of his boot and turned toward his car, heart pounding with a rage that had slept for 15 years. The secret was supposed to stay buried. Now someone was going to pay for unearthing it. By late afternoon, the forensics team arrived like a coordinated military unit. White vans with government plates, technicians in lab coats, cameras flashing inside the basement like bursts of artificial lightning. Lisa refused to leave the parking lot. She sat on the hood of her Honda Civic for 6 straight hours, her gaze locked on the school's darkened windows. She watched as boxes were loaded into the vans, Sophie's sneakers, the pink sweater, 8 backpacks that had never made it home. At sunset, Tom found her there, silhouetted against the orange sky. "You need to go home, Lisa," he said gently. "Get some rest." She didn't look at him. "Rest?" she asked, voice brittle. "My daughter was lying dead under this building for 15 years while I decorated an empty grave with flowers and prayers. You think I'm going to rest now?" Tom didn't argue. He sat beside her on the hood, the metal creaking under his weight. "The coroner's preliminary report came back," he said. "There were no remains, just belongings." Lisa turned to him sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means they weren't killed there," he replied. "They were held there for some time, then taken somewhere else." For the first time that day, something flickered in Lisa's chest. Not joy, not even hope, but a possibility. "Moved," she said slowly. "Moved where?" "That's what we're trying to determine." He reached into a plastic evidence bag and held it out. Inside was a folded note. "We found this on the teacher's desk," he explained. "A letter from Margaret." Lisa took the bag with shaking hands and read through the clear plastic. The words hit her harder than anything yet. "May 15th, 1996. If someone finds this, please know we tried to run. David wouldn't let us leave. He says we know too much about what he's been doing with children from other schools. The bus was supposed to be our escape, but he found out. He's moving us tonight. I don't know where. I'm so sorry. Tell the families their children were brave. Monsieur Frost." Lisa read the note again, slower this time, the words warping as tears welled in her eyes. "David," she whispered. "Who's David?" "David Crane," Tom said, his tone grave. "He was the principal in 1996, retired 2 years later, moved to Florida." "What did she mean?" Lisa asked. "What he's been doing with children from other schools?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. "We're looking into that too." Lisa slid off the hood of her car, pacing the cracked pavement in small, agitated circles. "Where is he now? This David Crane?" "We don't know yet. The last known address was in Clearwater, but the property was sold 3 years ago. No forwarding address?" Lisa's voice cut through the parking lot air like a knife. "You mean he just vanished? Disappeared into thin air?" Tom hesitated, shifting his weight uncomfortably. "We're working on it. He won't stay hidden forever." Lisa stopped pacing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she stared hard at him. "Will you? Will you actually find him this time, Tom? Because 15 years ago, you looked me in the eye and told me you'd bring my daughter home. That you'd find that school bus. That you'd find answers." Tom's face flushed. He opened his mouth, but Lisa didn't give him the chance. "You told me a lot of things that turned out to be lies." "Lisa, we did everything." "Did you?" Her voice rose sharply, louder than it had been all day. "Did you search the school? Did you even check the goddamn basement? Did a single person in your department ask why 8 children and their teacher vanished without a trace?" Tom stood, both palms lifted in defense. "We followed every lead. We searched hundreds of miles of road. We dragged the river twice. And all that time," she hissed, "my daughter was 30 feet underground in the building where she should have been safest." Lisa let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "You want to know what I think, Tom? I think all of you were relieved to call it a bus accident, a tragic misdirection, neat, clean, no uncomfortable questions about what was happening inside those school walls. No press conferences about corruption, no fear for your own kids." Tom's lips parted to protest, but she cut him off before he could make a sound. "I'm not waiting for you to find David Crane. I'm going to find him myself." She turned and stalked toward her car. "Lisa, don't do something reckless," Tom called out, following behind. "This is a police matter now. Let us handle it." She turned on him with eyes blazing, car keys already in hand. For 15 years, this wasn't a police matter. It was just a grieving mother seeing conspiracies where there were only accidents. I was crazy, obsessed, broken. Her voice cracked, but her stance didn't waver. "Well, guess what, Tom?" she said. "I was right. There was a conspiracy. And now I'm going to find the man who murdered my child and buried the truth." Tom stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her arm. "Lisa, please. You're not thinking straight. You're hurt and angry." "You're damn right I'm angry," she said, jerking her arm away. "But I'm also the only person who never stopped searching. I know this case better than anyone in your department, because I lived it. Every single day. Every dead lead, every false sighting, every sleepless night." She opened the car door and sat behind the wheel, lowering the window just enough to speak through it. "You look for David Crane your way," she said. "I'll find him mine. May the best investigator win." Then she shifted into drive and pulled away, tires crunching against the gravel. Tom stood there, heart thudding. He reached for his phone, thumb trembling slightly as he scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in years. Frank Holloway. The line clicked after 2 rings. "Frank, it's Tom Valdez. I need your help." A pause. Then, "You're digging up the Millbrook case?" Tom glanced down the road, where Lisa's taillights were already fading into the dark. "We found something. Evidence that they never left the school. And the mother, Lisa Brennan, she's gone rogue. She's going to track Crane herself if we don't get there first." Frank's voice sharpened. "David Crane? You sure? You know that name?" "Hell yes, I know that name," Frank snapped. "I've been chasing shadows with his name on them for 10 years. He's not just your guy, Tom. He's connected to at least 6 other missing kid cases in 3 different states. All ruled accidents, all swept under the rug." Tom's stomach dropped. "Where are you right now?" "About 5 hours out. I'll start driving. But listen to me. Don't lose sight of that woman. If she gets too close." Frank didn't finish the sentence. What, Frank?" The line was quiet for a beat. "Cranes has killed to protect this secret before," Frank said finally. "He won't hesitate to do it again." Tom stared down the road, muttering a curse under his breath. Lisa was driven by 15 years of grief and righteous fury. But she was heading straight toward a man who had already taken 8 lives and might take more. By the time Tom returned to his patrol car, Lisa was gone. Meanwhile, less than 30 miles away, in a cabin buried deep in the woods, a structure that appeared on no maps and was registered to no name. David Crane sat at a battered wooden table, loading bullets into a pistol he had hoped to never touch again. Each click of the magazine was a drumbeat of dread. He had rebuilt everything after Millbrook. New town, new name, a job as a consultant. No one had questioned him. He'd paid for silence, paid for records to disappear, but now, a single note, a dead teacher's last words, was threatening to unravel it all, unless he acted first. Lisa's kitchen counter looked like a private detective's war room by midnight. She had driven home without stopping, her fingers itching to tear into every record she could find. The overhead light buzzed as it illuminated a chaos of printed internet searches, taped together maps, highlighted news articles, scrawled timelines, and a battered Florida phone book she'd picked up at a roadside gas station. The glow of her laptop screen showed open tabs from 6 Florida county websites, property records, tax histories, voter registrations. David Crane had sold his Clearwater house in 2008, a cash transaction. No mortgage trail, no vehicle registration, no online presence, no credit. He'd become a ghost. But his ex-wife was another story. Helen Crane, now Helen Voss, had kept her maiden name after the divorce. Divorce records were public, and Lisa had called the Clearwater courthouse pretending to be a graduate student writing a thesis. A bored clerk had happily read her everything on file. "Irreconcilable differences," the clerk had said. "Wife filed in 97. Claimed he had inappropriate conduct with minors. No charges filed, though." Lisa's pen had snapped in her grip. Helen had known. She'd known what kind of monster her husband was. And instead of going to the police, she'd just vanished. But she hadn't hidden well enough. Helen Voss had left breadcrumbs. 3 disconnected phone numbers, 2 former addresses, and, most importantly, an active electric bill in her name, Gainesville. Lisa circled the address on her printout and picked up the landline phone at 12:47 a.m. She dialed one of the numbers she'd found. It rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. "Hello? Helen Voss speaking." Lisa's hand gripped the receiver tighter. "My name is Lisa Brennan. My daughter Sophie disappeared from Millbrook Elementary in 1996. Your ex-husband was the principal. I believe you know something. I need to speak with you about David Crane." There was a long silence on the line. So long, Lisa thought the call had been dropped. But then, the woman on the other end exhaled sharply. "I was wondering when someone would call me," Helen said, voice low and tired. "It's been a long time since I heard that name." Lisa pressed the phone harder to her ear, stunned. Helen's voice trembled on the other end, barely above a whisper. Then, just once, he said it. He told me they'd never find them. Lisa's hand jerked, and she nearly dropped the phone. Her stomach turned to ice. "You knew?" "I suspected," Helen admitted. "For years, I suspected something. Kids would get transferred to other schools, but no one would say why. Parents would raise concerns, then suddenly stop asking questions. David, he'd come home different on those days. Quiet, but almost energized. It wasn't right. It was the wrong kind of excitement." Lisa stared at the wall, her pen hovering above the notepad on her kitchen table. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Helen let out a bitter laugh, one that sounded more like a sob tangled with regret. "With what? Bad feelings? Suspicion?" He was careful, Lisa. Always careful. And he wasn't alone. He had connections, friends in the department, people who owed him, people who looked the other way. Lisa wrote fast. "What kind of friends?" "Jim Morrison. He was the sheriff back then. He and David went to high school together, played poker at each other's houses every Thursday. And there was someone else. Someone I never met. But David called him when things got complicated." "Who was he?" "I don't know his real name. David just called him the cleaner. Said he helped solve problems that couldn't be handled in normal ways." Lisa's blood ran cold. "Are you saying David had help? That someone helped him cover this up, hide the bodies?" "I'm saying my ex-husband didn't work alone," Helen said. "If you're calling me at 1 in the morning asking about missing children, then something's happened. Something big. Something he thought was buried." "They found it," Lisa said. Her voice cracked. "The classroom, hidden behind a concrete wall in the school basement. All their things were still there." Helen didn't speak for a moment. Then Lisa heard her begin to cry. Quiet sobs at first, then deeper, guilt-soaked ones that had clearly waited 15 years to escape. "I should have stopped him," she whispered. "I should have done something back then. I was afraid." "You can stop him now," Lisa said gently. "Where is he?" "I don't know. After the divorce, he changed his name. Disappeared. The alimony checks used to come from a law office, but even those stopped a few years ago." Lisa jotted down every detail. "What was the law firm's name?" Helen gave it to her slowly. Lisa underlined it twice. "What about this cleaner person? Any way to find out who he was?" "Dead. Car crash in 2003. Very convenient timing if you ask me." Lisa's head swam. The sheriff, the cleaner, the department, layers of corruption that went all the way to the top. People who had let David Crane disappear. "Helen, I need you to come forward. We need to go to the police together. Tell them everything." "I can't," Helen said immediately. Voice strained. "If he finds out I talked..." "He's going to find out anyway," Lisa snapped. "This is on the news now. If you don't help, he'll just vanish again." The line was silent for a long time. Then Helen said, almost in a whisper, "There's something else. Something I've never told anyone." Lisa held her breath. David kept trophies, little things from each child. Ribbons, toys, jewelry. He had a box, kept it locked in his office at home. "Do you know where it could be now?" "I don't," Helen said. "But David was sentimental about his work. He wouldn't throw them away. He would have taken it with him." When the call ended, Lisa sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by scribbled notes, half-empty coffee cups, and a fresh storm of dread. Trophies, corruption, a man who never worked alone. At 1:23 a.m., her phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? There was no voice at first, just heavy, deliberate breathing. Then a rasp like gravel. You need to stop asking questions about things that don't concern you. Lisa froze. Who is this? A friend, the voice said. One who's been watching you, driving around town, making calls, stirring up trouble that should have stayed buried. Her spine stiffened. David Crane? A low, dry laugh. David's not available, but I am. And I'm telling you, stop digging. Go home. Forget what you saw in that basement. Lisa clenched her jaw. Go to hell. Your daughter's been dead for 15 years, lady. Nothing you do is going to change that. But keep pushing, and you'll join her real soon. The line went dead. Lisa stood frozen, the phone still to her ear. But this time she wasn't shaking from fear. She was burning with fury. Someone had been watching her. She turned to the kitchen window and scanned the dark street outside. Porch lights glowed. The night was quiet, empty, but someone had eyes on her. She turned away, and that's when she saw it. Her front door. It was unlocked. Lisa always locked the door. Always. She remembered locking it when she got home. She double-checked it like always. She grabbed a kitchen knife with one hand, the phone with the other, and crept toward the living room. Her breath caught. On the coffee table, neatly placed next to her keys, was something that hadn't been there earlier. A small, purple hair ribbon, identical to the kind Sophie used to wear. Lisa screamed, a sound raw and piercing. 3 blocks away, David Crane sat in a dark room, headphones clamped over his ears, listening to the microphone he had planted beneath Lisa's kitchen table. He smiled. The grieving mother wanted to play detective. Fine. But soon, she'd learn the hard truth. Some cases weren't meant to be solved. Lisa didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table with every light in the house on. The hair ribbon, cheap polyester, not Sophie's silk, lay sealed in a sandwich bag before her. A baseball bat rested across her knees. At 5:47 a.m., she called Tom. Tom, he was in my house. What? He left something. A purple hair ribbon. And I got a call. Someone threatened me. Jesus Christ. Was it Crane? Or someone working for him? He said I needed to stop. That I'd end up like Sophie. Lisa, I told you. He found me, Tom. I didn't find him. She looked down at the ribbon. It's not Sophie's. I think it belonged to another girl. Helen said he kept trophies. Wait, Helen? You talked to his ex-wife? Yes, last night. She confirmed everything. Tom went silent. Lisa, listen to me. You need to leave that house. Now pack a bag and come to the station. We'll keep you safe. I'm not running, Lisa said. You're not equipped for this. No, Tom, I'm the only one who is. Tom's voice dropped. Lisa, I'm not arguing with you. This isn't a support group meeting or a therapy session. This is a criminal investigation into a serial predator who's already proven he'll kill to stay hidden. You're not safe. And neither is anyone else if he's still out there, she replied. That's why I'm staying in the fight. I'm sending a unit to your house now, he said, and I'm on my way. Don't open the door for anyone. Just hurry. Lisa ended the call and glanced once more at the plastic bag on the table. The ribbon wasn't Sophie's, but it belonged to someone. Some other mother, still searching, still wondering. Someone like her had been for 15 long years. And if Crane thought she was going to back down, he didn't know her at all. She wasn't the broken woman he'd left behind. She was the storm coming for him. Lisa stood in her kitchen, surrounded by a storm of paper, notes, maps, and timelines. Her walls were littered with newspaper clippings and highlighted documents, and strings of twine-connected key names and dates on cork boards. A crime board built in grief and rage, pieced together in a single sleepless night. This is a man who's murdered children, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. And he's walked free for 15 years. She looked around at what she had assembled. More tangible evidence in one night than the police had uncovered in over a decade. Her notepads were filled with names, addresses, law firm connections, old court records, and most damning of all, fresh testimony from a terrified ex-wife. "Maybe I'm more equipped than you think," she said aloud. Before Sheriff Valdez could respond to her earlier call, she ended the conversation and tossed the phone on the table. She wasn't waiting for permission anymore. By 7 a.m., Lisa was behind the wheel of her car, headed toward Gainesville. She had a name: Brenner, Kyle and Associates, the law firm that had once sent David Crane's alimony checks. It wasn't much, but it was a thread, and Lisa had learned how to follow threads. The drive took 3 long hours. Her mind churned the entire way. She kept replaying the voice on the phone, the threat, the unlocked door, the ribbon placed on her table. Crane wanted her frightened. He wanted her off balance. That meant she was closer to something he didn't want uncovered. Brenner, Kyle, and Associates occupied half a floor in a sleek downtown office building. It was sterile, all glass walls and silver trim, trying too hard to appear untouchable. Lisa walked through the lobby with her head high, dressed in her sharpest black dress, a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes were calm, but inside, her nerves were on fire. At the receptionist desk, she smiled smoothly. "Good morning. I'm here regarding the Crane account. I'm with the insurance agency handling his policy. We have a few questions that need to be clarified." The lie slipped out like butter. She'd practiced it on the drive. 5 minutes later, she was ushered into an office where Martin Kyle waited behind a spotless desk. He was lean, mid-50s, with thinning hair swept neatly, a Rolex on one wrist. He kept glancing at his watch like she was already wasting his time. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Crane closed his account in 2008, Kyle said. "We haven't had any contact since." Lisa didn't miss a beat. She slid a crisp, fake business card across the desk. "Mr. Kyle, I'm sure you understand the sensitivity of life insurance fraud investigations. We believe Mr. Crane may have faked his death to evade certain legal issues." That got his attention. Kyle's brows drew down. "What kind of legal issues?" Lisa's voice dropped to a measured calm. "The kind involving missing children." For a beat, Kyle said nothing. Then he closed the folder in front of him, leaned back, and studied her closely. "You're not with an insurance company, are you?" "No," Lisa said, locking eyes with him. "I'm the mother. The one from the news." Recognition flickered in Kyle's eyes. "Your daughter." "Sophie," Lisa said, the name sticking in her throat. "She was 7 years old when she vanished along with 7 other kids and their teacher. David Crane took them." Kyle exhaled and turned to the window. "David Crane was our client for a brief time. We handled his alimony, real estate paperwork. Nothing illegal. At least, not that we could prove." Lisa stood still, listening. "But I'll admit," Kyle said, "he gave me the creeps. The way he talked about children, the way he smiled when certain news stories came on. Amber alerts, missing kids. He looked pleased." Lisa stepped forward. "Did he ever mention other schools, other districts?" Kyle nodded slowly. "Once. He said he'd helped other districts handle their problem children. Quietly. Said sometimes kids had to be removed before they became dangerous." Lisa's stomach twisted. "Did he leave any kind of forwarding information?" "No," Kyle said. "But he left something else. Something for people like you. He told us to give it to any grieving parent who came asking questions." Kyle crossed the room to a file cabinet, unlocked a drawer, and removed a sealed manila envelope. He handed it to her solemnly. "Your name's on it." Her breath caught when she saw the words, "Lisa Brennan," typed in bold block letters. Her hand trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a single typed page and a small brass key. Lisa read the letter aloud under her breath. "Mrs. Brennan, if you're reading this, it means you found the classroom. Congratulations. You're more persistent than I expected. You want to know where your daughter is. You want to know what happened to all of them. The key will show you. Storage Unit 89, Cedar Ridge Storage, Highway 301 North. The answers are waiting. But be warned, some truths are worse than ignorance. Some doors should remain locked. Your daughter suffered. They all did. And it was because of you. Because parents like you refuse to see what your children really are, refuse to admit that some are born broken, born wrong. I fixed them. I saved the world from what they would have become. Come alone, or don't come at all. DC. Lisa's hands curled around the key so tightly that it pressed into her palm. She blinked rapidly, tears stinging, rage simmering beneath her skin. What does it say? Kyle asked softly. She looked up. It says David Crane is still playing goddamn games. Kyle's expression darkened. You should call the police. Thank you for your help, Mr. Kyle, she said, and without another word, she left. In the elevator, she stared at her reflection. Her eyes were hard now, sharp. She'd spent 15 years begging for truth. She wouldn't beg anymore. Back in her car, she dialed Tom Valdez and left a voicemail. Tom, it's Lisa. I found where Crane's been hiding evidence. Storage Unit 89, Cedar Ridge Storage, Highway 301 North. If anything happens to me, that's where the truth is. That's where you'll find what he did. She didn't tell Tom she was going alone. She didn't mention the part of the letter that said, "Your daughter suffered." And she didn't say that no matter how twisted, no matter how horrific, she had to open that door. Because not knowing had already cost her everything. Cedar Ridge Storage appeared on the right like a bleak outpost on the edge of nowhere. Long rows of beige metal buildings stretched behind a rusted chain-link fence topped with curling barbed wire. A faded wooden sign, its paint peeling, swung slightly in the morning breeze. Lisa turned into the gravel lot and parked near the front office, her heartbeat pounding in time with the ticking of her turn signal. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel before she finally cut the engine and stepped out into the humid morning air. The key felt heavy in her pocket, heavier than brass had any right to be. Each step she took toward the gated row marked Unit 89 seemed to echo louder than the last. Some truths are worse than ignorance, the letter had said. But she was done being ignorant. She was done being afraid. Whatever David Crane had hidden in that unit, she was going to see it, with her own eyes, because after 15 years of emptiness, pain, and unanswered prayers, she would rather confront the darkness than keep living in its shadow. Lisa pulled into the gravel parking lot of Cedar Ridge Storage, the engine of her car idling softly as she stared down at the small brass key resting in her open palm. Unit 89, a number that had become a final destination. She clenched the key tightly, its sharp edges digging into her skin, a small pain to match the storm inside her chest. For a long moment, she didn't move. She just sat in the driver's seat, the weight of 15 years pressing down on her shoulders. Whatever was hidden behind the corrugated metal door of that storage unit wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was a tomb, a shrine, a sick confession by a man who had destroyed lives and called it justice. And it was also the last remaining thread that connected her to Sophie. With a deep breath, Lisa stepped out of the car. The early sun filtered through the trees in dull shafts, but the air already smelled of heat and dust. Her sneakers crunched softly on the gravel as she approached the row of storage units. Unit 89 was tucked at the end of a narrow lane, shadows clinging to its edges. Behind her, obscured by thick pines and tangled underbrush, David Crane knelt in silence, a pair of high-powered binoculars trained on her. His eyes, narrowed and cold, followed her every movement. From his vantage point, he could see the determination in her stride, the tightness of her shoulders. He smiled, a slow, crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. She was about to learn the truth. Lisa reached the unit and inserted the key into the lock. It turned with surprising ease. Despite its rusted exterior, the mechanism was smooth, as if it had been oiled recently. She paused, a chill crawling down her spine. Someone had been here, not long ago. Her hands shook as she gripped the handle and pulled the door upward. The metal screamed in protest, the sound loud enough to send birds fluttering from nearby trees. Darkness stared back at her, heavy and foul, thick with the stench of moldy cardboard and something else, something sweeter, cloying, and wrong. It made her gag. She turned on her phone's flashlight and stepped inside. The narrow beam cut through the blackness, revealing neat stacks of bankers' boxes lining both walls, stretching all the way to the back of the unit like a hallway of graves. Each box had a name scrawled on the front in those same meticulous block letters. Sarah M., 1994. Tommy K., 1995. Jessica R., 1997. Lisa's heart pounded as she moved down the aisle, her light dancing across box after box. 23 in total, 23 children. And there, placed prominently at eye level on a metal shelf near the back, was one box labeled Sophie B., 1996. Her breath caught, her knees weakened. Her fingers, trembling, reached out and lifted the box. It was heavier than it looked, solid with secrets. She sat on the cold concrete floor and opened the lid. The first thing she saw was a school photo, Sophie's second-grade portrait. Lisa had the original tucked behind her driver's license, had stared at it for years. But this copy had been defaced. A red crayon had scratched angry X's over her daughter's eyes. Beneath the photo was a cassette tape, neatly labeled, May 15, 1996, Final Interview. Lisa's hands trembled as she dug further. Next came Sophie's purple hair ribbon, the real one, silk, the expensive kind from the boutique store downtown. Then a square of floral fabric, part of Sophie's favorite sweater, the one Lisa had knit by hand. And at the very bottom, wrapped in tissue, was something that made her stomach turn. Sophie's bracelet, the silver chain she'd been given for her 7th birthday. But it had changed. 2 of the charms, the heart and the star, were missing. Only one remained, a tiny silver skull. Lisa recoiled, nearly dropping the bracelet. Her eyes darted around. Across the aisle, perched atop another stack of boxes, sat an old portable boom box. Her breath ragged, she grabbed the cassette and inserted it. A click, then static. Then her daughter's voice, software shaky. "Please, Mr. Crane, I want to go home. I want my mama." Lisa's heart broke all over again. Tears blurred her vision as the voice of David Crane answered, cold and clinical. "Tell me again, Sophie. What did you see Miss Frost doing in my office?" "She was looking at your computer," Sophie replied. She said bad words when she saw something." "What kind of bad words?" "She said you were selling kids. She said she was going to tell the police." A pause. Sophie's voice, quieter this time, was trembling. "Are you going to sell me too?" Lisa's scream echoed through the storage unit. She lunged forward, slamming the stop button so hard the boombox skidded off the box it was resting on. Her chest heaved. Her skin was ice. Behind her, gravel crunched. She turned, flashlight swinging wildly. David Crane stood at the entrance. Older, grayer, but unmistakably him. "I wondered how long it would take you," he said. 15 years of searching, and you finally found what you were looking for." Lisa scrambled back, crashing against the boxes behind her. "You monster! You goddamn monster!" Crane stepped inside, his smile calm and maddening. "I saved them, Lisa, all of them. You think your daughter was some perfect angel? She was manipulative, a liar. I could see it in her eyes, even in 2nd grade." Lisa spotted a rusted screwdriver on the floor. She gripped it, her fingers curling tight. "You're insane." "I'm a realist," he countered. "Some children are born twisted, and if we don't stop them early, they grow into something worse. I saw it. I stopped it." He gestured to the boxes. 23 future monsters, murderers, rapists, politicians. I spared the world from all of them. Lisa rose to her feet. "Where are they, David?" "Where are the bodies?" He chuckled. "Oh, Lisa, still so limited." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. On it played a video. A young woman in a cafe, working the register. She looked up, smiled at a customer. She had Sophie's eyes. Lisa's legs gave out. She sank to her knees. "That's not possible." "She's alive," David said softly. "Living in Oregon. Name's Sarah Collins now. Married, pregnant. You should be proud." The screwdriver fell from her fingers. "You're lying?" "No, Lisa," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "I'm giving you the truth. The truth you chased all these years. Not every child died. Some were rehabilitated, re-educated, molded." Lisa stared at the screen, unable to look away. The young woman on it had Sophie's mannerisms, her way of tilting her head when listening, the same dimple on her left cheek. "What did you do to her?" she whispered. "I gave her a second chance," Crane said. "Stripped away the rot, removed the influences that would have made her dangerous, raised her the right way, under a new name, in a place without interference." "You kidnapped and brainwashed her," Lisa shouted. "She survived," he snapped. "She thrived, and now she's happier than she ever would have been under your roof. I saved her from becoming what she was destined to be." Lisa's scream tore through the air, louder than before, fiercer. She lunged, not for the screwdriver, but for Crane himself, and he wasn't smiling anymore. "She doesn't remember you." The words fell from David Crane's mouth like a judge's gavel. Therapeutic intervention, when applied correctly, is very effective. She believes her parents died in a tragic car crash when she was 5, raised by a loving adoptive family, a family that understood her unique needs. He tapped through his phone, scrolling past photos like they were items on a menu, each one more damning than the last. "Would you like to see the others? Tommy runs an auto repair shop in Colorado. Jessica's a nurse in Seattle, all thriving, all happy, all productive members of society, thanks to my intervention." Lisa's stomach turned as she stared at the photo still lingering on his screen. The young woman had Sophie's eyes, her smile, her way of holding her head slightly tilted, like she was listening harder than she let on. "I don't believe you," Lisa whispered. Crane pulled out a card and held it between 2 fingers. "Call this number. It's a coffee shop, Grind, in downtown Portland. Ask for Sarah Collins. Tell her you're planning a Brennan family reunion. See what she says." Lisa's breath hitched. The world around her tilted. 15 years of grief. 15 years of sleepless nights. Of leaving flowers on an empty grave. Of picturing her daughter buried in a forgotten patch of earth. "Why?" she rasped. "Why let me think she was dead?" "Because you were a terrible mother," Crane replied without a flicker of emotion. "You coddled her, enabled her worst traits. The tantrums, the manipulation, the games. She needed structure. She needed to be reshaped." Lisa felt the heat of rage rising, boiling just beneath the surface. She lunged for the screwdriver, but Crane was faster. His grip was brutal, fingers like steel clamped around her wrist. "Careful, Lisa," he said, tightening his hold until her hand spasmed and the screwdriver clattered to the floor. "We wouldn't want Sarah to become an orphan again. You touch her and I will." "You'll do what?" His voice remained calm, almost amused. "You'll fight me? Turn me in? I have people watching, all of them. My success stories are protected." He released her and stepped back. "Here's how this works. You're going to call Sheriff Valdez. You're going to tell him this storage unit holds nothing but old school documents. You're going to walk away. Because if you don't, if you try to turn this into some big crusade, then Sarah dies. So does her husband. So does their unborn child." Lisa's world narrowed to his face, the coldness in his eyes. He wasn't bluffing. She knew it. She could feel the truth in her bones. 24 hours, he said, turning toward the exit. "That's how long you have to clean this up. You destroy the evidence, make your little investigation disappear, and they live." "And if I don't?" she managed to croak. "Then they disappear too. Permanently." He stepped into the sunlight, but paused at the threshold. "Oh, and Lisa," he added without turning back. "Don't try to reach out to any of them directly. You do, and I'll know. I always know." Then he was gone. Lisa slid down the wall, her body trembling. Around her, 23 boxes sat silently, boxes that held pieces of children no one else had been able to find. She stared at the one with Sophie's name, the edges worn from her hands, and she felt like she was falling through space. "Why tell me all of this?" she muttered aloud. Crane's voice echoed in her head. Because martyrs inspire crusades. Living ghosts inspire silence. Outside, his tires crunched on gravel as he drove away. The silence he left behind was suffocating. Then Lisa's phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Attached was a photo. Sarah, Sophie, laughing, radiant, sitting in a cafe with one hand cradling her round belly. Below it, a caption. 23 hours and 56 minutes remaining. Lisa didn't move. She didn't breathe. She sat in the driver's seat of her car for hours, the image frozen on her phone, her mind spiraling through a million impossible options. Every part of her wanted to get on a plane, fly to Portland, and wrap her daughter in her arms. But she couldn't. Crane had people watching, always watching. Her phone rang again. Sheriff Valdez. Lisa, I got your message. Where are you? Her lips parted. She could tell him everything. Show him the boxes, the cassette tape, the altered photo. But if she did, Sophie would die. So would others. I'm still at the facility, she said, her voice hollow. What did you find? She closed her eyes. I think I made a mistake, Tom. It's just old files. Nothing criminal. No evidence. There was a pause. Lisa, that doesn't sound like you. Grief can make you see things that aren't there, she whispered. It can make you desperate. What about the classroom? Maybe Frost panicked. Maybe she saw things that weren't real. I don't know anymore. I don't believe you. Well, maybe I'm just tired, Tom. Tired of chasing ghosts. She ended the call before he could respond. When she got home, she couldn't sit still. Her living room was a war zone of papers, photographs, maps, and lists. Her laptop still displayed an open page of missing persons cases. She stared at the screen. What now? Expose Crane and risk her daughter's life? Do nothing and let him continue this nightmare? Lisa's eyes drifted to the folder she kept hidden in her desk. Inside, a phone number, Helen Voss, David Crane's ex-wife. It rang 6 times. Then a tired voice answered. Hello? Helen, it's Lisa Brennan. He threatened Sophie. If I don't bury this investigation, he'll kill her. A long pause. I warned you, Helen said. He doesn't let go. I need your help. Please. He's got eyes on them. All of them. Helen's breath was shaky. He always called them assets. Said they'd pay off one day. Then help me stop him. There's another site, Helen whispered. In Tampa. Bayview Secure Storage. He kept backups there. Names, tapes, records, payments, just in case. Lisa's heart skipped. Can you send me the address? I'll text it, but be careful. You're dealing with a man who kills for ideology. I know, Lisa whispered. And that's why he has to be stopped. The text came 30 seconds later. Unit 312, Bayview Secure Storage. Lisa didn't wait. She didn't sleep. She didn't pack. She gathered what she had. Sophie's altered photo, the cassette tape, the bracelet, and shoved them into a box. Her notes, timelines, and research followed. She grabbed her keys and stepped into the early morning light. She was going to Tampa. She would find that second cache. She would expose everything. Because even if her daughter never remembered her, even if Sarah Collins remained a stranger, Lisa would protect her. That's what a mother does. Martin Kyle's voice crackled over the line, a trace of concern cutting through his usual calm. Brenner, Kyle, and Associates, this is Martin Kyle. Mr. Kyle, it's Lisa Brennan, she said, breath shallow, heart racing. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. There was a pause. Mrs. Brennan, are you all right? You sound... When David Crane left that envelope for me, did he leave anything else? Any instructions? A contingency plan? Her voice was sharp, too desperate to disguise. Kyle hesitated. Why would you ask that? Because he's still pulling the strings. Because he knew what I'd find in that unit, and he knew how I'd react. He's expecting me to follow a certain path, and I think he's set up guardrails to make sure I stay on it. Mrs. Brennan, I'm not sure I should. My daughter is alive, Mr. Kyle, she interrupted, voice trembling. He didn't kill her. He trafficked those kids. He gave them new names, new homes, erased their memories, and now he's using them as pawns to keep me quiet." The silence that followed was heavy, like a thick fog settling over both ends of the call. Eventually, Kyle said, almost in a whisper, "Jesus Christ. So, I'm asking you again, did he leave anything else? Any other envelope? Any instructions?" Another beat. Then Kyle's voice dropped low. "Yes, he left a second envelope. Sealed. Said if the first one didn't work, if you didn't back off, I was to give you the second one. He called it insurance." Lisa's throat tightened. "Where is it?" "I have it in our office safe. But Mrs. Brennan, maybe you should consider calling the FBI. They can help." "If I involve them, he'll know," she said immediately. "He has people watching Sarah, watching the others. If I go public or bring in the feds, they'll die. That's not a risk I can take." She glanced at her phone. 21 hours remaining. "I'm coming back to Gainesville," she said. "Have that envelope ready when I get there." 2.5 hours later, Lisa sat in her parked car. Engine off, envelope in her lap. It was thicker than the first. Her name was written across the front again, careful block letters, but underneath, smaller, in red ink. Final warning. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, and each one felt like a blade. Sarah, Sophie, caught in moments that should have been private. At home, at work, holding her husband's hand, buying groceries, smiling, laughing, in the shower, in bed, reading, vulnerable, unaware. These weren't surveillance shots from afar. Someone had been inside her house. Someone had been in her life. The last photo showed her asleep, one hand cradling her stomach. A shadow loomed in the foreground, someone standing at the edge of her bed. Lisa nearly vomited. Then she noticed the note. Folded between the photos, handwritten, the same cruel hand that penned the first letter. "Lisa, now you understand the situation. Your daughter lives because I allow it. So do the others. But my mercy has limits. You have 18 hours to convince Sheriff Valdez to officially close the Millbrook Elementary case. Convince him it was a hoax. Convince him the letter was fake. Convince him Margaret Frost was mentally ill. Fail, and Sarah Collins will die in her sleep. Her husband, too. And their unborn child? That will be harvested and sold. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a promise. DCPSPS. Don't try to warn her. She won't believe you. And my people have been in her life for years. Her best friend, her delivery driver, her doctor. We are everywhere." The pages slipped from Lisa's fingers. Her breath came in ragged gasps. This wasn't just about Sophie anymore. It was about an empire built on fear, manipulation, and power. And if she made the wrong move, she would lose everything. Her phone buzzed. Text from Tom Valdez. "Lisa, I need you to come in. FBI wants to speak with you about the Millbrook case." Her stomach clenched. She typed quickly, "Can't, still processing, need more time." His response came immediately. "This isn't optional? They're opening a federal investigation. They need your statement." Lisa stared at the clock. 17 hours and 43 minutes. She stared at the last photo, the shadow over Sarah's sleeping form. Over Sophie. She could go to the FBI, hand over everything, let justice take its course, and watch her daughter die. Or she could lie. Pretend nothing had happened, protect Sophie, and let the others stay hidden forever. Neither felt right. Neither felt survivable. Lisa drove toward the station, her thoughts spiraling. But halfway there, a new possibility struck her. One she hadn't dared to consider. What if there was a third option? What if she became exactly what Crane feared? The kind of mother who would do anything to protect her child, even if it meant becoming something darker than she ever imagined. She didn't slow down until she reached the city limits. Her mind was a whirlwind of faces. Sarah's smile, Crane's cold eyes, the shadow in that photo. The FBI office in Jacksonville loomed like a fortress of glass and concrete. She passed through security in a daze. Up close, the place reeked of control. Bureau-issued suits, cold coffee, and the endless hum of printers churning out reports no one ever read. A woman greeted her in the lobby. Mid-30s, dark ponytail, no-nonsense posture. "Special Agent Rebecca Torres," she said. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Brennan." Lisa nodded mutely and followed her through the maze of beige cubicles. They entered a glass conference room where a recording device sat at the center of the table like an accusation. Lisa sat, folded her trembling hands in her lap. "I understand you've been investigating your daughter's disappearance independently," Torres began, her voice calm but watchful. "We'd like to hear about any evidence you've uncovered." This was the moment Lisa had wanted for 15 years. The moment she had begged for, dreamed of. Real investigators, real authority, finally listening. But every word she spoke now could be Sarah's death sentence. She looked Torres in the eye. "Agent Torres," she said slowly, "I appreciate the FBI's interest, but I think there's been a misunderstanding." Torres blinked. "Misunderstanding?" Lisa forced herself to smile, the muscles in her face protesting. "I was desperate. I thought I saw connections that weren't there, patterns, clues, but it was grief. All of it. I wanted so badly to believe Sophie was alive that I made something out of nothing." Torres tilted her head. "The hidden classroom? The letter from the teacher?" "I think Margaret Frost was mentally ill. She wrote a lot of strange things, didn't she? Probably believed them. And the items in the basement." Lisa's throat tightened. "Properties. Planted. Or preserved for dramatic effect. A hoax. Who would fake something like that?" "I don't know," Lisa said, shaking her head. "Maybe someone wanted attention. Maybe someone wanted to hurt us more. But it wasn't real. It wasn't what I thought." Torres leaned forward slightly, studying her. "You don't sound convinced, Mrs. Brennan." Lisa's eyes burned. She looked away. "I'm just tired. I've been tired for 15 years. I think it's time to stop chasing ghosts." The silence that followed was thick with doubt. Torres didn't press, but Lisa could feel it. The wariness, the suspicion. She left the building with her back straight, her stomach churning. Once in her car, she sat motionless for several minutes, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. Another countdown update, 15 hours and 10 minutes. Lisa gripped the steering wheel. She was done playing by Crane's rules. If he wanted silence, fine. She'd give him silence. For now. But behind the scenes, she'd start her own investigation, off-grid, offline, using burner phones, encrypted messages, untraceable storage. She would become the ghost. And when the time was right, she'd strike back with the full weight of 15 years of fury. He'd never see her coming. "What kind of misunderstanding?" Agent Torres asked, her voice sharp but curious, probing gently like she was peeling back layers Lisa didn't want exposed. Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, fingers shaking just enough to sell the performance. She pulled up the photo she'd taken. Bare concrete walls, the corner of a forgotten chair leg, empty space. Not a single incriminating box or label in sight. "I spent yesterday chasing what I thought was real," Lisa said softly. "Every lead, every clue. It all seemed to point to David Crane, the old principal. I thought I'd found something big. But when I actually investigated..." She let the words trail off, added a slight shrug. Disappointment, shame, exhaustion, all of it was written on her face. "What did you find?" Torres pressed. "Nothing," Lisa said. "Old school supplies, broken desks, faded worksheets, dust, just dust." Torres narrowed her eyes. "Sheriff Valdez told us about a hidden classroom and a teacher's letter, one that named David Crane directly." Lisa met her gaze evenly. "I believe Margaret Frost was frightened, and when people are scared, they don't always think clearly. She might have truly believed Crane was involved, but it doesn't mean he was. Trauma does strange things to memory." "And the storage unit?" Torres asked. "You told the sheriff there was evidence." Lisa took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "I thought there would be, but all I found were old records. Nothing more than outdated attendance sheets and curriculum plans. I was desperate, and grief." Grief makes you see what you want to see, even if it's not really there. Torres studied her for several long seconds. Lisa's phone buzzed in her purse. She didn't need to check it to know what it said. Your daughter is cooking pasta, red sauce. She's humming. How long has it been since you hummed, Lisa? Lisa forced her face into neutrality. Mrs. Brennan, Torres said, leaning forward. With all due respect, this doesn't sound like the same woman who's been fighting for her daughter's case for 15 years. Maybe that woman finally realized she's been chasing ghosts, Lisa whispered. Sophie's gone, and David Crane is probably just an old man with a failing memory. I let hope get the better of me. I wasted your time. I'm sorry. She stood up. Torres lifted her hand. I'm afraid I can't let you leave just yet. Lisa's heart leapt into her throat. Am I under arrest? No, Torres said carefully. But we have reason to believe David Crane is more than just an old man with a long resume. She pulled open a file folder and spread out photos across the table. 17 children, all between 6 and 9 years old. All missing, all from schools where David Crane had been employed. 6 states, 25 years, every single one vanished while he was in charge. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She recognized more than one face. Could be a coincidence, she said, her voice too soft to sound sincere. Torres didn't blink. Could be, but there's this. She passed over another photo. David Crane, 20 years younger, standing beside a man with a clipboard outside a modest building. Loving Homes Adoption Services. Shut down in 2003 for falsifying records and selling children to unvetted families. David Crane was listed as a consultant, evaluated children, helped decide which ones were suitable for placement. Lisa's phone buzzed again. Sarah just felt the baby kick. She laughed. Her husband did too. Torres was still talking. Lisa barely heard the words. Her daughter was alive, laughing, and had no idea how close she was to losing it all. We believe Crane was identifying children he thought were vulnerable or troublesome and arranging their disappearances through black market adoption pipelines. Torres continued. Your daughter could still be alive, and we can help find her. The third message came. Don't even think about it. Lisa glanced up. Torres was so sure, so capable. She could end this entire network if Lisa gave her the ammunition. Agent Torres, Lisa said, I want to help you, but I don't have anything concrete. The storage unit was empty. The classroom doesn't prove Crane did anything. There's just no real evidence. Torres slowly began collecting the photos, her expression unreadable. We're going to investigate either way, but it'll be faster with your help. I've told you everything, Lisa said, and stood again. Have you? Torres asked. Silence stretched between them like a live wire. Yes, Lisa said, I have. Torres finally nodded. All right, if anything comes to mind, anything at all. She handed over her card. Lisa took it with damp fingers and walked into the sun. Her phone rang. David Crane. Clever performance, Lisa, he said. Very convincing. Go to hell. The FBI will dig, of course, but without your cooperation, without those boxes or your testimony, they'll be chasing their tails for years. What do you want from me? She snapped. I want you to disappear, sell your house, leave town, change your name. Let this all fade. Lisa didn't answer. She sat in the car staring at the wheel. Why not just kill me? She finally asked. Because you're not a threat anymore. Your grief, your noise, you played your role. Now disappear. Lisa exhaled. If I vanish, you'll leave her alone? As long as you stay quiet. Sarah lives, her baby lives, the others live. Speak up, and they all die. You've seen how easy it is for us to be inside her house, her life. You're a monster. No, Lisa, Crane said calmly. I'm a gardener. I remove what doesn't belong so the rest can grow. The call ended. Lisa stared at the phone, her reflection warped in the screen. He wanted her gone, broken, silent. He wanted her to vanish like the others, and maybe that's exactly what she'd do. But not the way he thought. She'd sell the house, take down the timelines, burn the files, make it look like she gave up. But behind the curtain, she'd rebuild everything. Offline, hidden, secure. She'd find allies, not law enforcement, someone better, investigators who didn't play by the rules, journalists who didn't care about red tape. She would gather evidence, secure identities, and chart connections between all 23 children. And when the time came, she would strike. And this time, she wouldn't be a grieving mother with tears in her eyes. She'd be the storm. Lisa sat motionless in the driver's seat, parked in the FBI lot, her hands still wrapped around the steering wheel. The agent who could potentially dismantle David Crane's entire empire was just inside, yet Lisa had left without saying a word that could save anyone. Not because she didn't care, but because saving her daughter meant betraying every other victim. Her phone buzzed. "You disappointed me, Lisa. Now Sarah pays the price." Attached was a new photo. Sarah Collins collapsed on the kitchen floor, a pan of brownies scorched behind her in the oven. Her rounded, pregnant stomach was perfectly still. Lisa's breath caught. Her body jolted into motion before her brain could fully process the image. Tires screamed against the pavement as she yanked the wheel and shot out of the parking lot. She slammed her foot on the gas and merged onto the interstate. Her only thought, Portland. It was 28 hours away if she drove nonstop, but she didn't have 28 hours. She had maybe 6, maybe less. She finally understood what Crane had planned all along. Sarah was never going to live. Crane had used her as bait, an emotional hook to keep Lisa quiet and compliant while the FBI chased shadows. And now that Lisa had served her purpose, he was ready to eliminate every piece of evidence, starting with Sarah. Lisa's fingers shook as she dialed 911 while tearing north on I-75. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an attempted murder in Portland, Oregon, Lisa blurted. A pregnant woman named Sarah Collins is in immediate danger. She stopped. Her mind was moving faster than her mouth. She didn't even know Sarah's address. "Ma'am, are you witnessing a crime right now?" "No, I'm in Florida, but I have credible information. She works at a place called Grind Coffee in downtown Portland. The man targeting her, his name is David Crane. Ma'am, I'm transferring you to..." Lisa hung up. The operator would create a report. Maybe forward it to the local Portland PD. Maybe it had reached someone in time. But maybe it wasn't enough. She called directory assistance. Portland, Oregon. Grind Coffee, downtown location. The line rang 4 times before someone finally picked up. "Grind Coffee?" It was a young guy's voice, probably a barista. "We're actually closed right now. Is Sarah Collins there?" Lisa's voice cracked. "Please, this is a family emergency." "Sarah? No." Her shift ended around 3 o'clock. She left. "I need her home address," Lisa said urgently. "This is literally life or death. I'm sorry, I can't give out employee information." "She's in danger. Someone is trying to kill her tonight. Please, I'm her aunt." A pause. "Hold on." Lisa could hear a muffled conversation in the background, voices debating. Then the barista returned. "Ma'am, Sarah's not answering her phone. We tried calling her, and honestly, you sound really upset. Maybe you should call the police." "What's her address? Please, I'm begging you." "I really can't give that out." "Then call her yourself, right now. Tell her to get out of her house immediately. Tell her someone named David Crane is coming for her." Lisa didn't wait for a reply. She hung up and called Agent Torres directly. "Agent Torres, FBI, this is Lisa Brennan. I lied to you." A pause. "Go on." "David Crane is alive, and he's about to murder my daughter tonight in Portland, Oregon." "Mrs. Brennan, where are you?" "Driving to Portland." Lisa spoke quickly, her words a desperate rush. "My daughter is alive. Her name is Sarah Collins. She works at Grind Coffee downtown. He placed her with an adoptive family 15 years ago after erasing her memories. She doesn't know who she is. Mrs. Brennan, I need you to slow down. He's been using her as leverage to keep me quiet, but now that I talk to you, he's going to kill her and her husband." Lisa could hear typing on the other end. "I'm contacting the Portland field office now," Torres said. "Do you have an address?" "Number just her name. She's pregnant, works at Grind Coffee, married name Collins." "Any idea where David Crane is?" "I don't know." Lisa admitted. But he's been tracking me. He knew I was with you today. He might already be in Portland. Mrs. Brennan, I need you to turn around. Come back to Jacksonville. Let us handle this. Like hell I will. Lisa ended the call and dialed the coffee shop again. Grind coffee. This is the woman who called about Sarah Collins. Did you reach her? Yeah, actually. She picked up. But she said she doesn't have any aunts. She told us that if you call again, she's calling the police. Lisa's heart sank. Of course, Sarah didn't believe her. In her world, her parents had died in a car crash when she was a child. She had no living relatives. No reason to believe a woman sobbing on the phone. Did you tell her about David Crane? I mentioned the name. She said she never heard of him. Lisa closed her eyes. The memory erasure had worked. Probably years of therapy. Clever manipulation. Every trace of Sophie Brennan was scrubbed from Sarah Collins' mind. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without speaking. You should have kept your mouth shut, Lisa. David Crane. His voice was like ice water, calm, cold, deadly. Where is she? Lisa asked, her voice a whisper. Safe, for now. But you forced my hand. The FBI is calling Portland PD. That kind of attention is bad for business. Let her go. This is between you and me. No, Lisa, Crane said flatly. This is about protecting an operation that took me 30 years to build. I gave you a choice. You made the wrong one. You sick son of a... And if I don't act now, he cut in, Sarah Collins will finish baking brownies for her husband's birthday tomorrow. She'll kiss him goodnight. She'll fall asleep dreaming about their baby, and she'll never wake up. It would be a shame if she never got the chance to become a mother. The line went dead. Lisa stared out the windshield as the miles blurred by, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. All her efforts, all her compromises, had been for nothing. Crane never intended to keep Sarah alive, but Lisa wasn't done yet. She floored the gas pedal and kept driving. Sarah Collins was one of my finest achievements, David Crane said, his voice smooth and clinical like a doctor explaining a procedure. A volatile, manipulative child reshaped into a stable, contributing member of society. But now, thanks to your interference, she's become a loose end. Lisa's eyes flicked to the dashboard. 95 miles per hour. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as she fought to keep her voice level. She's pregnant, David. You're talking about murdering a woman who's about to bring a new life into this world. How can you justify that? This isn't about morality, he said, calm and detached. It's about containment. When a thread starts to unravel, you don't pause to admire the weaving. You cut it. The line fell silent, save for the hiss of road noise on Lisa's end. Then he continued, You have two options, Lisa. Turn your car around, drive back to Florida, and explain to the FBI that you had an emotional breakdown. Tell them Sarah Collins is a fiction, a product of your unresolved grief. Convince them that this whole thing was just you chasing ghosts. Lisa's grip tightened. And if I don't? His voice dropped, ice cold. Then Sarah dies tonight, and so do the other 22. I've placed contingency assets near every one of them. One command from me, and every success story becomes a statistic. A tragic accident. A police report. A memory tears stung Lisa's eyes, not just from sorrow, but from fury that threatened to explode. You're bluffing. Am I? Crane's tone hardened. Tommy Rodriguez just pulled into his garage in Colorado. He's alone. It would take nothing, just one slip of a jack while he's under the car. That's all it would take. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Jessica Park, he went on, is working her night shift on the 3rd floor of Mercy General in Seattle. You know how often nurses slip on freshly mopped staircases during graveyard hours. Do you want her to be the next? Stop, Lisa cried. I can erase all 23 by sunrise, Lisa. Erased, forgotten, like they never existed. But if you stop now, if you walk away, then they live. She stared at the endless highway stretching ahead, headlights slicing through the dark. With every mile, she was closing the distance to Sarah. And with every mile, she was making a choice between saving one life or saving them all. How do I know you won't kill them anyway? She asked, her voice barely audible. Because they're valuable, he said, as if explaining a business transaction. Assets with long-term potential. Eliminating them would cost me years of work. But if you force my hand, if you become a liability too. Lisa saw an exit sign and yanked the wheel, pulling into a truck stop parking lot. The engine idled as she stared at her own reflection in the rear-view mirror. She looked like hell. But this was the worst moment of her life. All those children, all those lives built on stolen identities, half-truths, and emotional manipulation. Her daughter among them. If she kept driving, they all might die. If she turned back, they might live. But the lie would go on. Crane's voice returned, dripping with anticipation. So, what's it going to be, Lisa? She closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing against her chest like concrete. I'm turning around. There was a pause. Then, good. Smart woman. Now, you'll call Agent Torres. Tell her you had a psychotic break. That this whole thing, Sarah Collins, the investigation, it was a fantasy you made up to cope. And then, she asked, then you disappear, leave Florida, sell your house, move somewhere far, somewhere quiet, and never mention my name again. Lisa reached for the gear shift, started to reverse out of the parking space, then stopped. David, yes, I want proof of life. I want to see Sarah. I want to know she's unharmed before I make that call. A pause. You're not in a position to negotiate. I'm not negotiating, she said. I'm offering a deal. You give me proof she's alive and I'll bury everything. I'll make the FBI investigation disappear. Another long silence. Then, Crane relented. Check your phone in 10 minutes. The line went dead. She sat in that truck stop lot, surrounded by the smell of diesel fuel and the hum of engines. She watched semis pull in and out like great metal whales, and thought about the 23 children she'd almost saved. But then a thought crept in, one David Crane hadn't counted on. Agent Torres wasn't some small-town deputy. She'd already tied 17 cases across 6 states to Crane's name. The FBI wasn't going to drop the investigation just because Lisa Brennan walked away. And when Crane realized that, when he discovered that letting Lisa live hadn't neutralized the threat, he would come for her, and for Sarah. One final cleanup. Lisa's phone buzzed. She opened the video message with trembling hands. Sarah Collins sat on a plush couch, reading a paperback novel. She looked peaceful, one hand cradling her pregnant belly, the faintest smile on her lips. Alive, unharmed. But in the background, there, just in the silver reflection of a photo frame, was a man standing behind her, motionless, holding a gun. Lisa's stomach turned to lead. She shifted the car back into drive. But when she returned to the highway, she didn't head south. She turned onto the northbound ramp toward Portland. Because sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to step right into its lair. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is a grieving mother with nothing left to lose. Downtown Portland shimmered in midnight rain, the streets slick and shining beneath the orange haze of streetlights. Coffee shops glowed on every corner, their windows fogged with heat and life. Lisa found Grind Coffee at 11:47 p.m., parked across the street, and waited in the dark. There she was. Sarah. Behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine, restacking cups, humming to herself as she moved through closing routines. She looked so much like Sophie it hurt. The same precise, careful hands. The same tilt of her head. Lisa had driven 26 hours on caffeine and adrenaline. Her phone was a storm of missed calls. Torres, Valdez, numbers she didn't recognize. But she ignored them all. David Crane thought he'd won. He thought he'd forced her into choosing between truth and survival. But he'd given her the greatest gift of all. He'd shown her where her daughter was. Lisa stepped out of the car, jacket drawn tight against the rain, and crossed the street. She paused at the door, heart pounding, fists clenched in her pockets to hide the shaking. Through the glass, she watched Sarah close the register. Then Lisa pushed open the door. A bell chimed softly. Sarah looked up, startled. "I'm sorry," she said. "We're actually closed." She stopped and stared. Her voice trailed off as her gaze locked onto Lisa's face. Confusion flickered across her features. Then something deeper. Recognition, buried under layers of false memories and trauma-sculpted lies. They stood there, two strangers sharing the same eyes. Two lives fractured by the same man. 1 second passed, then another, and in that pause, everything changed. Lisa stood frozen as her daughter's eyes locked onto hers for the first time in over 15 years. Sophie, or Sarah, as she now knew herself, looked confused, uncertain, and wary. "Do I know you?" she asked slowly, as if trying to place a face from a dream. Lisa's throat tightened. She had rehearsed this exact moment across sleepless nights and countless lonely hours. But now, with her daughter standing before her, all those carefully chosen words vanished. Her voice cracked. "You called here earlier," Sarah said, her tone guarded. "You said you were my aunt. What is this about?" Lisa stepped forward, eyes brimming. "Sarah, please, you need to listen to me very carefully. Your life is in danger." At once, Sarah's hand moved protectively to her pregnant belly. Her instincts screamed at her. "I don't know who you are. My name is Lisa Brennan. 22 years ago, I had a daughter named Sophie. She had your eyes, your smile, your way of tilting your head when she was thinking." Lisa took another cautious step forward. Sarah flinched, inching toward the phone behind the counter. "You need to leave, now." Sophie vanished from her school on May 15th, 1996. 7 other children and their teacher disappeared with her. Everyone thought they died in a bus crash. But they didn't. They were taken by a man named David Crane. "I don't know anyone named David Crane," Sarah said, reaching for the phone. "You wouldn't remember. They erased your memories. They made you believe your parents died in a car crash, that you were adopted by loving strangers. But all of that, it was a lie. You're insane. I have a crescent-shaped birthmark on my left shoulder. You do too. You had a gap in your front teeth when you were 6. You still have a small scar on your right knee from falling off your bike." Without thinking, Sarah's hand flew to her knee. A flicker of recognition passed through her eyes. "How do you?" "Because I'm your mother. And if we don't leave now, David Crane is going to kill you tonight." Across the street, under a dim streetlight, Lisa saw a figure appear, tall, gray-haired, wearing a dark coat. He paused just long enough for her to recognize him. David Crane. "Sarah, we have to go, right now." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Sarah said, panic in her voice. She grabbed for the phone, but Lisa seized her wrist. "Look at me, really look, tell me you don't see something familiar." Sarah paused. Her eyes locked onto Lisa's, and the resemblance, the same jawline, the same eyes, was undeniable. But her world was unraveling too fast to accept it. The bell above the door chimed. David Crane walked in, hands in his pockets, smile calm and patient. "Hello, Sarah. Hello, Lisa." Sarah's eyes darted between them. "Who are you?" "I'm an old friend of your mother's," he said, gesturing to Lisa. "We have unfinished business." Lisa stepped between them. "Let her go. This ends with me." "I'm afraid it's too late for that," Crane said. From his pocket, he pulled a small pistol. Sarah recoiled, heart pounding. "You involved the FBI, Lisa," Crane said calmly. "Now I have to clean up the mess." "What do you want?" Sarah asked, voice trembling. "To correct a mistake I made 22 years ago," he said. "I should have removed the evidence. Instead, I repurposed it." "What evidence?" she whispered. "You," Crane said, "and 22 others. Children who would have been burdens, transformed into functioning members of society. Until one of them, until you, became a liability. You stole children and erased their identities." Lisa spat. "That's not salvation, that's trafficking. I gave them better lives. Sophie Brennan, for instance, is manipulative, cruel, and on track to become a danger to others. I intercepted her trajectory." "She was a child," Lisa said through clenched teeth. She was showing all the signs: lies, manipulation, cruelty to weaker kids. I saw it clearly. Sarah clutched the counter behind her for support. This can't be real. This is some kind of breakdown. Look in the window, Crane said gently. At your reflection beside hers, the resemblance is undeniable. Sarah turned. In the glass, two faces mirrored each other. Mother and daughter, 20 years apart. The same curve of the cheek, the same storm-dark eyes. No, she whispered. Your name is Sophie Brennan, Crane continued. You lived in Florida. Your favorite color was purple. You had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Buttons. Sarah's knees gave out. Lisa caught her, holding her steady. I don't remember any of that. The memories are buried, not gone, Crane said. I could help you recover them. Don't listen to him, Lisa pleaded. He's a liar. Wouldn't you want to remember your real mother? Crane asked. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Is it true? She asked Lisa. Are you really? Lisa nodded. I've been looking for you every day for 15 years. I never stopped. How touching, Crane said, raising the pistol again. But this reunion is over. The gun was pointed straight at Sarah's chest. Lisa moved without thinking. She shoved Sarah behind the counter and hurled herself at Crane, fury and fear giving her strength. The pistol discharged with a deafening crack, shattering the window behind them. They crashed into a display of ceramic mugs. Glass and porcelain exploded around them as Lisa tackled him, clawing at his wrist. Sarah, run! She screamed. Sarah bolted toward the back, heels slipping on the tile. Another shot is fired into the ceiling. Lisa wrestled the gun from Crane's grip and slammed his hand to the floor. He grunted in pain. You think this changes anything? He spat. Sirens howled in the distance. Someone had called the police. Lisa backed away, gun in hand, aimed at Crane. Her chest heaved. It ends tonight. Crane coughed blood, half smiling. You just exposed yourself. She'll never trust you now. Better the truth than your lies. Moments later, officers burst through the shattered door. Drop the weapon. Lisa lowered the gun and raised her hands. The lead officer retrieved the pistol, and another cuffed Crane without resistance. As he was hauled to his feet, Crane looked at Lisa one final time. You can't stop what's already in motion. But Lisa no longer heard him. She turned to find Sarah standing at the counter's edge, shaken, breathless. I don't know what to believe, she said. Believe what you feel, Lisa whispered. You knew me. You just didn't know how. The two women stood face to face, 22 years stolen between them, but in that moment, reunited. Sarah wasn't running. She was reaching under the counter, her fingers finding the aluminum baseball bat kept there for night shift security. In one fluid motion, she swung it with all the strength panic and adrenaline could give her. The metal connected with David Crane's skull with a hollow thud, like a melon hitting concrete. He collapsed instantly, the gun clattering across the floor and sliding beneath a nearby table. Lisa scrambled to her feet, heart racing, grabbed the pistol. AN checked the safety. She kept it trained on Crane's unmoving form while Sarah stood nearby, still gripping the bat, her chest heaving. Is he dead? She asked, her voice trembling. Lisa crouched beside him and checked for a pulse. Faint, but still there. No, she said grimly. But he's not going anywhere. Sarah dropped the bat and stared at the man lying unconscious at her feet. The man who had stolen her identity, her memories, her childhood. I remember him, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Oh my God, I remember him. The memories came in disjointed flashes. A small, windowless classroom, the sound of children crying, a teacher with gentle eyes trying to protect them. She turned to Lisa, her face pale. I remember you too, she whispered. You used to sing to me when I had nightmares. Something about sunshine and rainbows. Lisa couldn't hold back the tears any longer. 15 years of anguish, fear, and hope poured out in quiet sobs as she reached for her daughter. You are my sunshine. She began to sing through her tears, the familiar melody cracked and raw. Sarah's voice joined hers, hesitant at first, but growing stronger with each word. "My only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray." Outside, sirens wailed, growing louder as Portland police raced toward reports of gunfire. But inside the quiet coffee shop, a mother and daughter reclaimed their bond through an old lullaby, one that had survived the unthinkable. David Crane had stolen Sophie Brennan's past, but he hadn't destroyed the love that tethered her to her mother. That was something even his empire of lies and manipulation couldn't erase. 3 months later, Lisa sat in a Jacksonville courtroom watching David Crane shuffle into the defendant's box, wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. The man who had once carried himself with the confidence of a school administrator now looked gaunt, diminished, and utterly defeated. Gone was the patient smile that had convinced so many parents and school boards of his trustworthiness. Gone was the cool composure. All that remained was the hollow stare of a man whose empire had been leveled in a single night. The evidence retrieved from Cedar Ridge storage had been overwhelming. 23 boxes, each filled with trophies, documentation, cassette recordings, all chronicling one of the most elaborate child trafficking operations in modern American history. It had been enough to bring down Crane and force a reckoning across multiple states. Agent Rebecca Torres sat in the front row, her briefcase stacked with files. Over the past 3 months, she and her team had managed to locate 19 of the 23 stolen children. Now adults, they had been living under false identities, scattered across the country. Not all were eager to be found. Tommy Rodriguez in Colorado had rejected all contact, insisting his adoptive parents were the only family he knew. His mind, already strained, had rejected the possibility that his childhood was a lie. Jessica Park, the nurse in Seattle, had suffered a severe psychological collapse. She now resided in a private facility, trying to reconcile the life she remembered with the horrifying truth she couldn't yet accept. But some, like Sarah, had chosen to face the truth. She sat next to Lisa in the courtroom, 8 months pregnant and radiant with the peace of someone who had found herself again. Though she kept the name Sarah Collins, her identity for most of her life, she had embraced her past, reclaimed the parts that belonged to Sophie Brennan, and slowly built a bridge back to her mother. Her husband, David, stood beside her, holding her hand. Months of therapy had helped them rebuild trust, reshape their future around the truth, no matter how dark it had once been. The prosecutor began reading the charges. Count 1, first-degree murder of Margaret Frost. Count 2, kidnapping of minors. Count 3, operating an illegal adoption ring. Count 4, conspiracy to traffic children across state lines. The list went on for 12 full minutes, each charge a nail in the coffin of David Crane's carefully constructed life. He pleaded guilty to all of them. His attorney, a federal public defender, had advised him that cooperation might allow him to avoid the death penalty in favor of life behind bars. When the sentencing finally came, 7 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, Lisa felt a quiet kind of closure settle in her chest. Not joy, not satisfaction, but peace. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining, warm and golden. Lisa blinked up at it, tears welling again, but these were different now. These were the kind of tears that came when a weight you've carried for 15 years is finally lifted. Sheriff Tom Valdez waited by her car. "How are you holding up?" he asked, hands in his pockets. Lisa glanced back toward the building. Justice had finally come, not just for her daughter, but for Margaret Frost and the other 22 stolen lives. "Better," she said softly. "Finally better." Sarah waddled over, her pregnancy near term. "Baby's kicking," she announced, resting one hand on her belly and the other on her back. "I think she knows it's over." Lisa reached out, placing her hand next to Sarah's. She could feel her granddaughter moving, strong and vibrant. "What are you going to name her?" Lisa asked. Sarah paused, thoughtful. "Margaret, after Miss Frost. She saved us. Even in death, she saved us." Lisa's eyes filled again. She would have loved that. They drove back to the small house Sarah had bought just 10 minutes from. Sandpine Court, close enough for family dinners, for bedtime stories, for Sunday visits that would stretch into lazy afternoons. That night, as the baby did somersaults in the womb, Lisa sat beside her daughter and sang softly, "You are my sunshine." Sarah joined in, their voices twining like they had when she was just 7 years old. Through all the trauma, all the pain, the lies, and the years lost, this moment, this love, had survived. Some bonds, Lisa had learned, are too strong to be broken. Some connections are written in the blood, in lullabies, in the way two voices can harmonize even after decades apart. She had never stopped looking. She had never stopped hoping. And in the end, that had been enough. That had been everything.